When people hear the word retire, they think about investments, they think about portfolios, aging in place. That's what I call retirement IQ. But here on Retire Southern, we talk about something much deeper, life EQ. And life EQ is not about stopping work. It's about stopping misalignment. It's about building a life that fits before you run out of time. Because life is too short to wait for someday. But here's the question. What if the biggest misalignment in modern life has nothing to do with careers or money? What if it starts with self-care? And I don't mean spa days with manicures, massages, and cucumbers over your eyes. What if real self-care is something much more primal than that? Sunlight, sleep, movement, connection, what we choose to consume. Today, I'm sitting down with someone I've known more than 30 years, Dr. Matthew Campbell. When I pledged my fraternity at Clemson in 1993, Matt was the president. Back then, lessons were about leadership, brotherhood, and surviving college. Today, Matt is a clinical psychologist who has spent more than 2 decades studying human behavior. His workbook, Our Primal 5, argues something simple but powerful. Modern humans haven't forgotten how to succeed. We've forgotten how to live like humans. And when we neglect those primal needs, everything else begins to break. Today, we're going to talk about the 5 habits that make life work, the modern culture that undermines them, and why some of Matt's ideas might make people uncomfortable, especially down here in the Delta of Mississippi. Matthew, welcome to Retire Southern.
Thank you. It's good to see you, Jay.
Yeah, man. It's been a while.
It's been a bit.
Since we communicate mostly via text string.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's been a while. So let's get to the foundation. Before we get into psychology in your book, your workbook, I want to go back to the beginning. What do you remember about Clemson in the early 90s when you were the president of the fraternity and I pledged back in 93?
Oh, simple times.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. I remember this kid from New Orleans coming in and just this force of nature, him and his crew. I remember feeling like the oldest person in the world going to Florida State, when those young cats were having so much fun. And
yeah, you drove the van.
I drove the van.
I made you stop for the bathroom breaks many times, I think. Everyone in the van wanted
a lot
to
of different breaks,
kill me. Well, did you have any idea back then that you were going to become a psychologist, or were you already on that track?
I was one of the lucky ones that didn't have to change majors. I just knew what I wanted to do. I was pretty locked in and real fortunate for that.
So when you look back, are there any leadership lessons from that time that have any influence on what you do today?
I think so. I think that, and a lot of it's through observing others,
I'm sure that the fraternity was a great place to observe others.
It was. I was thinking about it. I was thinking, I kind of had the Hoover from Animal House approach, like uptight, organized, uptight guy. And then you had Cliff, who was, just this like super genuine communal guy, like everybody's welcome, super easy. Splinter, who just led by comedy and and then you had the subtle ones like Paul Green,
Yes.
I mean, the guy, he's so cool, ice doesn't melt on that guy.
He's like the Red October.
He is, and I know he led me in some wrong directions there that last semester, but just, it was all about be who you are, and that comfort with yourself really works.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought up Florida State. When I was thinking about the last 30 years, do you remember your wedding band?
Greatest band. Yeah.
Dr. Czar's amazing funk monsters.
Yeah.
You had probably one of the greatest weddings. That band blew me away. I just remember during their set break, we were getting beers, and I look over, and their lead guitar player. So it's just like 80s funk, rock cover band, just to frame this for everyone. If you haven't seen Dr. Czar's, and the lead guitar player was literally like doing a hurdler stretch just to stay loose. Oh, yeah. And I was like, man, they're still out there.
They put in the work.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They're still out there. They're still doing their thing. I think they're kind of like yacht rock. Like, I think they're just this perpetual band. Yeah. But you can book them. Not that we need to go there, but funkmonster.com.
I mean, 25 years later, that's impressive.
Yeah, they're out there. All right, so let's go from Clemson to clinical psychology. You've been in practice now since 2003.
Yes.
So after 2 decades sitting across from people trying to figure out their lives, what patterns do you see showing up just consistently again and again?
Yeah. I think the thing that, if I had to say one thing that leads people to my office more than anything else, or what things, it would be number one, emotion leading. So when emotion is what directs how we behave,
Yep,
we're in a heap of trouble. I think being short-term focused, another thing that gets us into trouble. And then there are some really, really interesting things. Probably the number one would be how we gravitate towards what we know and the familiar, even if we know it's not the healthiest, but we go to what we know.
Yes.
And it's just again and again, it's tough to break some patterns.
When you talk about patterns, do you believe that people are capable of change, or we're hardwired and we just, when we get stressed and when we get emotional, we just revert back to our core selves? Or do you think people are really capable of breaking a toxic behavioral pattern?
I definitely think that we are capable of doing it. It's hard.
Right.
It's hard work, and it requires doing things when we don't feel like doing them. And it really requires being attentive. It really, really requires noticing, because if we're not thinking about what we're doing, we are going to stick with the old patterns, the old reactions, everything like that. But it's doable.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
What's the definition of insanity? It's like doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different outcome.
That's right.
Like that. You actually mentioned this in your book. You say, so when we start thinking about awareness and how to break patterns, right, in self-care, you say that people either own 0 self-help books or they own 20. Why do you think that is, and why is implementation so hard?
Well, I think that you have the 0, right? And you have people, it's just not their thing. Right. I'm not interested in it. That's not my bag. But then I think you have people who the ideas become super interesting to them, so, I'll even have, I have people come into my office, and I think a lot of times people think that I'm just peeling off self-help books, daily or something,
right,
that I'm just, reading them up. But it becomes more like dinner table conversation, coffee talk, oh, did you read this? It's interesting. And most of these books, everyone that I've been told about or have come across, they've got some good ideas, but it stays in the idea area and not in the application area,
right.
And so I think they are interesting. I think they've got some cool ideas, but I think a lot of times they just stay at the idea level. And as far as implementation, it's kind of like the question you just asked. It's hard. It's challenging to do these things. And so, like I said, we're going to go to what we know rather than something new. New is anxiety provoking, like we don't know how that's going to go. We know how the other's going to go. Yeah. So it's a challenge, doable, but a challenge.
Change is scary. So your book proposes that modern life has drifted away from how humans evolved to live. So what do you mean when you say we forget that we are animals, right, at our core?
Right. Well, I think even the question that you're asking there, I think that there are people who would object, to even the idea that we're animals. So I think for some people, it's just very basic that they would disagree with it. But I also think we have these really unique brains, more powerful than any other species on Earth, and so I think it has created a disconnect for us. And I mean, the world we live in, the things that we can make are amazing, and I think that they have distanced us further and further. I mean, with each iteration, we're getting further and further from what we're made for.
Right.
And so I think people completely lose sight of it.
Yeah. I want to get into the meat of your book. So let's talk about the Primal 5. So the one thing that makes your book different, you just said this a second ago, is that it isn't a traditional self-help book. It's not just ideas. It's a workbook. So you're not just presenting ideas. You're asking people to actually change behavior. And the structure is simple but powerful. It's 5 behaviors, 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And each week focuses on improving one habit. So you go sunlight, sleep, movement, connection, consumption. When I first read through it, in some ways it felt to me like a behavioral Whole30 for modern humans. Not forever, but more of a structured reset, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So why did you design the book as a workbook instead of a traditional read-through self-help book?
Yeah, I mean, it's too easy if it's done in a way that it's like, read my idea. Mm-hmm. Read my idea that this is primal, we've got to do it, look at these stats, so on and so forth. Then I'm just encouraging an idea, I feel like. I want it to help people. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I was considering this and putting something together, I was thinking, I'd like to write something. And over the years, like I was talking to somebody about it the other day, I have this. A lot of times, like when my kids would go down and go to bed at night, my wife is taking a bath, doing her thing, and I'm just, I was hanging out. I'm kind of restless. So what I would do is I would write these blurbs. I did blogs for a little bit that included a few of them. And it would be things that I saw at my office all the time. Just very human challenges that I just saw again and again. Mm-hmm. And I have like 5 pages of them, 6 pages of these different ideas. But when I was deciding, well, if I write something, I'm going to take one go at it. I'm going to do one thing. What would actually be the most helpful? Mm-hmm. And some of these are a little catchier and things like that. But in terms of impact, no question in my mind, these were the ones that I would work with people on that easily had the biggest impact on their lives.
So what happens when someone actually commits to 5 weeks of practicing these behaviors? What is a reasonable outcome, or what is it you hope someone would achieve?
More than anything, I would hope that it would first and foremost increase their awareness, because that's huge. Like I said, we just don't recognize our needs and these things. Number 2, I would hope that at least they dedicate themselves to, let's say, one of them. Because I think that one of the most powerful things that you can do, we are so accustomed, I think it's one of the reasons also it's hard for people to do these things, is that we're so accustomed to like this depleted state we're in. Mm-hmm. We're so used to it that it's our normal. And whatever our normal is, we think, hey, that's just the way it is. And I think if we would dedicate ourselves even to just one and see how life could be different, if we improved one. Not perfect. None of us are perfect.
Right.
We're going to hit a fast food place, because, any number of reasons.
Right.
We don't want perfect. Perfect is unattainable and makes us more stressed. But I think that just working at them, because one of the things that made me realize this is that how important these are is there was this time where I got super motivated. Andy McGinnis, he and I did P90X,
Wow. You and McGinnis, just to frame it for everyone, Andy McGinnis was another fraternity brother who claims to be the greatest shortstop of all time.
That's a big claim.
That's a huge claim. His college ID, he looks somewhat like a vampire in his ID photo.
That's fair.
But so I didn't realize you guys did P90X together. That's incredible.
We did. We were keeping each other accountable. Texting, hey, did you do it today? Things like that. But I got in this super healthy mode.
Okay.
And my diet, man, it was clean.
Yeah.
And I did that for a good while. And then one time I went with my wife and her family to this awesome steak restaurant at Rosemary Beach. It was phenomenal.
Okay.
Rich food.
Mm-hmm.
It did not agree with me because what happened is my body had been getting what was natural to it for so long. And it's almost like an allergic reaction is really what it is it's just like an allergy. When you stay away from an allergy, when you're exposed to it, it's a really powerful, strong reaction to it, right? Mm-hmm. If you're constantly exposed to it, you feel terrible, but it's not that super intense response. And so that's kind of the thing, is that we don't even realize these things oftentimes because we're so off kilter with it that we don't even realize how important they are and how much we benefit, how much better we feel if we can get after it.
Yeah, that's a great point. So when I was starting to try, like, so just full disclosure, I haven't spent 5 weeks working through the workbook, but I read through it cover to cover at first, just because I, as a recovering engineer, things need to make sense, and it's
Sure.
logical to me, and it's super logical, and it makes sense to me, and so I started monkeying around with it, a couple days in, and a couple days ago, and I was surprised by how just implementing a few little things without doing it for a week and 5 weeks, just if I did something one day and didn't do it the next day, just how different I felt. So just as an example, let's start with sunlight. You start the book with something so incredibly simple. It's just spend some time in the sun.
Right.
Why is sunlight so important for mental health?
When I was going through these and going over them and coming up with, okay, these are the areas, sunlight honestly was the one that kind of was not, I wasn't the most passionate about.
Okay.
I knew it was necessary. I live in Mississippi, and one thing we don't lack for is sun.
Yeah, it's hot.
It's hot. But when I spoke with my sisters who live in Oregon, they were like, oh yeah, we get it. We get it. Up in the, Northwest.
Yeah, the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. I mean, they just don't get the sun and they feel it.
Yeah.
They feel it. They really crave it. But, it's just one of those things that I think that when you look at the research, it's crazy. It's crazy how much of an effect sunlight has on us. It's, and I know this is kind of, maybe for some, for a lot of people more at an extreme, but there were several studies that was replicated. So several different studies found the same thing. And they had folks that had bipolar disorder who were in the hospital, in a psychiatric hospital. And what they found was that the people who were in rooms that had a window versus those who didn't have a window, those with a window stayed 4.5 days shorter time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because it's just, that's what we're made for. We're made for it, particularly morning sunlight. 15, 30 minutes of morning sunlight is golden.
Okay.
So good for us.
It's better than other sunlight?
It is. It's better for us because it really sets the circadian rhythm, that 24-hour cycle. And so it helps not only make us more alert, it's also, as crazy as it sounds, that is our first sleep hygiene technique, is morning sunlight.
Morning sunlight.
It's setting that circadian rhythm. It's letting us know it's daytime.
So what is the simplest daily sunlight habit someone could start tomorrow? Is it a morning walk? Is it just, hey, go take your water break outside? Like what would you recommend as a place to start?
I love the morning walk idea. I think if you want to go as simple as you can, when you get up, a lot of times people have a cup of coffee, go sit on a porch.
Yeah.
You have that cup of coffee on the porch. I mean, super simple, but basically you're sitting outside rather than inside, and you will benefit from that.
Yeah.
As simple of a thing as that is.
We just moved to a house recently where we actually have a covered back porch, and one thing that we started doing, not every morning, maybe it's more on weekends, but just having the cup of coffee, in the morning on the porch, it's just so nice. I didn't even think about sleep. Okay, this is huge for me, and I just feel like I'm tired all the time. So you write that sleep is one of the most well understood aspects of self-care, yet one of the most neglected. Why do modern humans, like James, sleep so poorly?
How many distractions do we have?
Right.
And it's kind of like the idea, again, behind the primal aspect, looking at in terms of, ancestors and things like that. They had no choices in this regard. Like, these things are more difficult for us because it's more difficult right now than it's ever been in human history, because we have the number of choices we have is unbelievable. And so our ancestors had no choice but to be outside, no climate controlled environments for them. They had no choice but to move if they wanted to survive. They didn't have options of consuming processed things. They had to work together. because we're pack animals. We don't, the lone wolf doesn't survive.
Right.
And so many of these things that we're talking about, and with sleep, we're diurnal. We can't see at night. It's a really good time, to rest our bodies, since we can't do as much as many productive things. And so, but now, we have lights that can be on all the time. We have these computers that we carry in our pockets with these phones all the time. These are things that so easily can distract us. And like you're busy.
Yeah.
You're a busy guy. In the evening, you're probably saying, oh man, finally.
Yeah.
Some time to just relax and things like that. And before you know it, particularly with technology, you're looking up, it's way past when you'd hope to go to bed.
Yeah.
And so absolutely, it's really tough.
So how much of our anxiety or burnout is really just sleep deprivation? Is it like, what percentage would you say?
I don't know that I can give a percentage. I can say that if you are sleep deprived, the chances of that it skyrockets.
Okay.
It's off the charts, because it's just, our body is again, using that term, it's so depleted that our reserves, because one of the functions of sleep, it affects memory, focus, attention, but one of the main ones is emotional regulation, handling feelings. And so to your point about irritability. And these kind of things, our ability to do that goes down the drain without sleep.
What are the biggest sleep mistakes you think people make, or the most common ones that you see?
I think that one that is obvious is the phone.
Yeah.
The one that's obvious is just this constant exposure to light. The fact that it's super addicting, these phones, so it makes it tough to have a time to cut off with it. That's something that's a really big deal. I also think that we know so many things that can help with sleep. I think that the thing that people often aren't as aware of is how important your time of waking is, keeping a consistent waking time. I think people recognize, okay, we need a routine, go into bed about the same time, these kind of things. But what I don't think people realize is how much of an impact having a consistent waking time is.
Yep.
Like I said, there's so much information, so many things that we know that help, but those are a few things.
Yeah, I don't want to give it away. First of all, you can buy your book on Amazon. That's how I bought it. I just went on Amazon, searched Our Primal 5 and let it rip. It came within 2 days. By the way, it was a beautiful thing. So I'm not going to give away the store, but some of the stuff, so we have a TV in our bedroom. And normally, it's like, oh man, I just want to unplug. I want to watch TV, before I fall asleep. And I guess this just became a habit from when I was in a previous life. I had a sales job, so I was on the road constantly, sleeping in hotel rooms, and I would just turn on the TV. It's just like white noise. And just throw on Forensic Files, because it just runs constantly. And I thought it would help me sleep. And so I would still do that to this day. And Monday night, I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to watch TV in bed, because I read that in the book. I'm like, I'm going to turn the TV off. If I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm not going to look at my phone, because that's the first thing I do. Is I start check emails, and then I ruminating, or I'll start chat GBTing an article. I just turned off all the lights, turned off all the screens, put my phone outside of my arm's reach. And I'm just telling you, not that was the miracle pill, but I felt so much better Tuesday morning.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head too, and I don't want to get in the weeds with this too much, but one of the things you just said is another mistake people make all the time, which is, if you're having a hard time sleeping, don't do anything productive with that time that you're awake. And
that's so counterintuitive to me. I would get up and go work. Yeah. Because I'm like, hey, if I'm up, I might as well be productive.
Right. I actually got fired by a client one time because I was trying to tell them, you can't do anything productive with that time. And they're like, well, you just don't get how busy I am.
Yeah.
That was a no-go for them.
You're fired.
Yeah. But what happens. But that's the thing, is that if we give a purpose to our insomnia, then we're reinforcing it.
Right.
Then it has a usefulness to have insomnia, to get poor sleep and things like that. And so, we can't sleep, we get out of bed. The rule generally is, if you can't sleep, 15 minutes, get out of bed, and you're not about to fall asleep. Get out of bed, do something that's just kind of low stimulation, chill, calm.
Read.
And then when you, yeah. I mean, unless it's something that's like, oh my God, I can't stop, can't put it down. But then go on and when you're feeling that fatigue, get back in bed.
Okay. Movement. This is a good one. So you dove into this a little bit a minute ago. Our ancestors evolved moving constantly. Today, I know I'm predominantly sedentary. I would say most of us probably are. What does physical movement do for our body chemistry, brain chemistry?
Well, physical movement it has so many effects. We have the serotonin and dopamine. We know that, we have people who talk about this runner's high. And I'm going to tell you something. I've tried running a good bit.
Yeah.
It has eluded me.
Yeah.
The runner's high, it is just...
I've never experienced the runner's high either.
It sounds fantastic. Yeah.
It sounds really great. Unless I was running from the police, intoxicated, I don't think I've ever experienced a runner's high. But
you had a lot of different things going through you at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it has all of these benefits. And the other thing that is huge is how much of a stress reliever it is. And so when I'm working with people who are dealing with a ton of stress and it's just ties them up, and tension and irritability and anxiety, all that, I really encourage them. It's like I always talk about, we got to have a release technique. We have to way to get that tension out to release it. And there are a number of different ways, but I think that far and away, the thing that most people find useful for that is moving, getting their bodies moving, releasing that energy that way.
Yeah. Now, my wife, Amanda, she's a very anxious person, and she'll just, when she gets really overstimulated, she'll just get out her phone and her workout mat and some hand weights and do a Peloton, whatever workout, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is. But she immediately feels better after she does something. You mentioned this in the book, that the World Health Organization minimum recommendation for exercise is 2 hours a week, which if you do the math, that's about 17 minutes a day. To me, that feels like setting a pretty low bar. I mean, if I'm being honest. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have people saying, "Oh, you have to walk 10,000 steps." What do you think is adequate as far as just getting started somewhere?
Walk 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Walk. Ideally, like you had said earlier, walk for 30 minutes in the morning would be an ideal.
Yeah,
that's
you're
a
getting
phenomenal
sunlight
place.
and you're getting movement.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And man, tie in having a friend that you go walk with every morning.
Right, then you have
bam,
connection.
3. You're stacking. But the thing is that you said something that I think hopefully people know about you. You were a pretty high level athlete. I mean, you played basketball. Well, okay, but that's the point, right?
Yeah.
Played basketball at a really high level, but that's your bar now. In your mind, you think, well, exercise means this, right? And hey, listen, we're not young anymore, right? I mean, that's a pretty lofty, unrealistic goal for us, but it keeps us, right? We're like, I could never get back there, right? We don't need to.
Yeah,
we don't need to. But again, I think a lot of times for athletes in particular, I think that's difficult because I'm going to do it or I'm not,
right?
And I think that's a roadblock.
Yeah, and that's a good point. You don't have to go out and deadlift or squat 400 pounds or max out on bench and spend 3 hours in a gym. One thing that I love to do is, we call it rucking. I mean, it's just like a backpack that has weights in it. And if I can just go for a walk with the dogs without it, or if I feel like breaking more of a sweat, I can throw some weights on my back and just walk around with a weighted backpack. So yeah, I find that works out pretty well. Connection.
Yeah.
Let's go there.
Yeah.
Humans are pack animals. James Lewis was not designed to live alone.
James Lewis was not. He is a prime example.
Yes. Why is loneliness so damaging to our mental health?
It's literally an epidemic. There was a white paper that was published in 2023 by the Surgeon General. Okay. It's that big of a deal. And that's the thing, just as kind of an aside with this, these are things that we know. These are things that we recognize are good for us. what I'm trying to do here is trying to bridge the gap, because we're not doing them. A third of people are sleep deprived. 80 to 90% of people are eating terrible. Okay. Half of people are report being in a lonely state. We're inside. We're on our phones. We're doing so many things that run contrary. Most people, somewhere between 3 to 5 of these 5 things, they're deficient in, right? And so I think that it's something that these are such universal problems that we have. You read the workbook. It goes over all these different stats and so much information on it. But getting back to that, we can't survive as the lone wolf. We're not made for that. It is something that we see greater anxiety, depression, our cognitive functioning goes down, and self-harm, the likelihood of self-harm. But it gets even wilder than that when you look at the physical: diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease. So it's obviously, like all of this, there's both mental and physical components to it. But these are things that are just so profoundly impactful. And my perspective, my point of view is it goes back to what were we made to do? And loneliness is so profoundly impactful, and it's increasing because we live in a society and a culture where the immediate need for that interaction isn't there. I mean, it's so bad now, you can order your groceries.
Right.
You no longer need to be in a grocery store with people like that.
Instacart.
Yeah.
Oh, we know it well.
Yeah. I mean, so there's so many of these, we got to watch out for the conveniences and the easy buttons, because those are mostly the things that take us further and further from what we're made for.
Yeah, it's funny. I say this all the time. I hate people in general, but I also need to be, around people, and everybody has, their family, and the people in their corner, their core group. But you said something interesting, and I guess I didn't pick up on this. You said most of us, when it comes to the Primal 5, most people are deficient in 3 of the 5.
Yes.
That's 60%.
Oh, yeah.
And then it just kind of dawned on me, just like improving one, just making an improvement on 1 of the 5 is a 20% improvement. I mean, so just making one change could actually have a dramatic
And
impact.
let's just think about what we were saying. I mean, I think that sometimes, with the example of sunlight, okay, we get that morning sunlight. What's going to be easier? Sleep's going to be easier.
Right.
They are very interconnected. And so, and that's the reason why when you asked the question earlier, I was like, okay, what would I want? Focus on one. Because there tends to be a domino effect with them, that they keep knocking each other over. We start feeling better. Not only are we more energized to do more, but also it's easier to do the others.
Right. It just builds more positive momentum. So getting back to connections, you use metaphor. The metaphor of relationships of being like a garden. Expand more on that.
Yeah, so that I had a guy who at the time, he now is a licensed psychologist, but he was a grad student, Josh Semko, or Dr. Semko now. But he was here working with me. He was doing what we call a practicum user, 20 hours a week a few years ago. And Josh, helped me with it and helped me with the workbook and really came up with some kind of cool twist ideas to some of these core things. And he came up with the garden example, which I loved, which is the idea is connection needs to be intentional. It needs to be thoughtful, because very often the connections that are very easy to make, like weeds, are not good for us. They're not really what we're going for. They're easy. It's the corner bar. It's it's these things where, I'm around people, we talk. But is it meaningful? Do you know the person? Do you care about them, and vice versa? Is there a back and forth? Do you leave feeling better? Do you leave feeling heard and understood and like, that kind of an experience? So that takes more effort.
My mom would say that I've made some poor relationship choices in my life. Yeah, come on. Got a couple skeletons in that closet. The irony of it is most people don't see how toxic a relationship can be until they get out of it. And when you get out of it, you of course see how toxic it is, and all of your friends are like, "Oh, well, I was telling you like how bad it was," but you just weren't hearing me. What are some signs, or what are some things you would tell people? Here's how you can recognize you're in a toxic relationship versus a healthy relationship. So maybe you can pull yourself out of it.
Man, I love that question. One of the things that a few of the things that I talk to people about, one is obvious, which is if you're having to work really hard to make that relationship work, if you're having to kind of bend over backwards, if you can't be you, that's a red flag.
That's a red flag. If you can't be yourself.
Because it's going to exhaust you. Yep. You know, if you imagine a relationship as kind of like two people balancing each other, well, if you're kind of having to contort to figure out a way to balance the other person, well, you're going to get exhausted.
Right.
You're going to fall down. But the other thing, and this is something that I noticed, you know, kind of going back to that idea of we repeat patterns. One of the things that I notice, and I encourage people as a signal, is if you find yourself, if you're talking to other people, if you're talking to family, and you find yourself either not telling them things that you otherwise would tell them, or excusing things that you think that you should tell them, that's probably a sign that you need to pay attention to what you're doing. Because there was the example that I love is it's an old research paper by a super smart guy named Dr. Paul Meehl. And he came up with this idea, and I'll try to make it as short. He came up with this thing. He was talking about prediction.
Okay.
And he called it the broken leg. And what he said was, if you had two guys, right? Let's call them James and Andy.
Great.
And they're going to race tomorrow, right? James, of course, has won the last 9 races.
Obviously.
Sure. Who's going to win tomorrow?
James.
Sure. You're using a predictive rule.
Right.
Past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. It's perfect. That's the right rule to use. But if I told you that James broke his leg last night, what would you say? Who's going to win?
Andy's going to win.
Right. So basically what you're saying is something has happened that renders that decision rule moot. Like it no longer works. This perfectly good decision rule doesn't work. So often we think that things are broken. Like we think things are exceptions to the rule. Like, yeah, they do that, but it's really this. Or they had a hard time with this. You know, and we make excuses for people and excuses. And the reality is as Dr. Meehl says, there are not many broken legs in this world.
Okay.
They are very rare. So if we're finding ourselves making excuses, if we're finding ourselves trying to explain it away or not letting people know, it's a red flag.
Okay. Now, I know you can't cover everything, but I was thinking about this too when it comes to connection. Pets, service animals, do those fit into the connection equation, or is it more human-based?
No, they work.
Okay.
They work. There's a significantly reduced level of loneliness in people living by themselves but have a pet versus those who live alone and don't.
Right.
So, no, it's a good thing.
Okay.
It's a good thing. I mean, obviously, common sense, would we prefer it be meaningful connection with another human? Sure. But in terms of something that is useful, absolutely, pets work.
Consumption. Removing junk. I think this is where things get interesting. You expand the idea of junk far beyond food.
I do, unfortunately for many.
Yeah. So, junk food,
Yeah.
alcohol,
Oh,
drugs, social media, news, pornography. That is a bold list, especially in a culture where I feel like a lot of these things are normalized. How much pushback do you get when you start to talk about these things?
When you ask me about leadership,
Yeah.
that like I would be the hooer from Animal House.
Yeah.
Well, I'm right back to being, that square, that guy. There is pushback. I think there's pushback because it's being a wet blanket. It's being someone who, is a thief of joy. But I think that it's important to realize that, especially with a few of these, we're not looking for perfection. And we get that we're going to do these things, some of them, hopefully not, but others, they're going to happen from time to time.
Sure.
And that's fine. That's just being human. Let's be realistic. But these are all of these are dopamine highs. These are things that the reward center in our brain gets flared up with these things, and that makes them things that we really need to watch out for, because if you got dopamine, you got addiction potential.
Right.
And so that's where we need to be really careful.
Yeah. No, it's like, I mean, the one that alcohol. I feel like, especially in the South, right? It's so deeply embedded in culture, like sporting events, celebrations, social gatherings, meals, right? And of course, it's easy. Like, I mean, I've done a dry January. The first 2 weeks.
I actually saw you during your dry January, and I didn't know what Lewis I was seeing.
Yeah, no, a water-based Lewis.
Yeah.
Not that I'm asking you, is there like a healthy level of alcohol, but like how can people think about alcohol in a healthy way? Like, is there a way to do that? Like limiting yourself to one drink a week or one drink a month, or do you have to just be like cut it out completely? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I have a few thoughts on that. I think, first of all, obviously the ideal would be zero.
Sure.
Right? Because it's a poison.
Yep.
We know that.
It's a really fun poison.
It's, it has its
allure,
upside.
Yeah.
But in terms of just trying to be realistic, right? Like, I love some of the stuff that's out there, like in the health world and these kind of things. My problem is, a lot of times I'm thinking, first of all, are the rest of us ready for these kind of more extreme approaches? And is it even possible to maintain them? Like, that's my concern with a lot of them. I love the ideas. But like alcohol being an example, the definition of moderate drinking, 2 drinks a day for men, 1 for women.
2 a day?
Yeah.
Wow, that's moderate?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's...
I don't feel so bad.
I may have made a mistake.
No. Amanda, I'm sorry. I don't. 2 drinks, come on, a day, that's crazy.
They are defined, James,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't mean 1 glass of whatever.
Right.
Gotcha. But that is what is considered moderate. And that's something that, again, obviously, we'd like none.
Sure.
But I also think that it's important for us to be realistic, to recognize, that's the ideal. Be great. Try to do that.
Yeah.
But I also think that treating any, that's one of the things, treating any like, oh my gosh, what a huge problem. Well, that gets back to this idea of being the buzzkill, right? Being the wet blanket is that I'm not trying to say don't do any of this or what have you. I mean, I think that perfection, never the key. Extremes, never the key, never the useful approach. It's just, okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like as you were saying before, how these things stack in a positive way or a negative way. When I do drink, I made the joke when I saw you before we flipped on the microphone. It's like I did a poor job last night of sticking to the Primal 5. So we had a couple of drinks and I slept horrifically. I always have terrible sleep when I drink. I wake up, I'm like more exhausted than I was before. I can't stay in bed. And I was going to tie this back to, even though it's not alcoholic, but even like caffeine. Normally, like I'm drinking coffee like all day long, and like one of your things in sleep was don't try to limit caffeine intake, like whatever it was, like 8 hours or 10 hours before bed. So like on Monday when I was good Primal James, I just said, hey, you know what, I'm not going to have any coffee afternoon. Like my last cup of coffee is going to be at 11 o'clock. And so that was also the night like I didn't have any coffee afternoon. I didn't have a Coke when I got home. I just drank water. I did all my sleep things, no phone, no, turned off all the lights. And man, I slept so much better. But anyway.
Well, no, to your point though, drinking too much, it inhibits deep sleep.
Yeah.
So we're going to be exhausted. It's not restful sleep.
Right.
But the other thing that you said that it brings me back to the way that you phrased that question initially, we also need to know ourselves.
Oh, sure.
And so we need to know, like, am I able to drink in a moderate way? Because that's also going to indicate or dictate, is this an okay area for me? And there are some of us who have addictive personalities. Some of us that when we have one drink, it feels so good. We're going to continue to have drinks. And we need to know that about ourselves when we set up goals to take care of ourselves. And there are some people who completely can moderate what they use and what they do.
Yeah. No, I can, it's really interesting. I can control and I can moderate. And sometimes when you're with a group of people and it's just like, hey, you know what? And my friend Eddie has a great rule. Have you heard the martini rule?
I have not.
Eddie's martini rule is martinis are like boobs.
Okay.
1 is not enough and 3 is too many. So
there we go, Eddie.
There you go.
It
Eddie,
works.
I think Eddie's onto something there. Junk, social media,
Yeah.
engineered to capture attention. What does it do? What does social media do to our brain chemistry? And do you think people really understand how addictive these platforms are?
I don't think they have any idea in the world. It is a dopamine capture, like most all these things. I mean, that's why we have to watch out for them is it's hitting the pleasure center. Mm-hmm. It is really nailing it. And as we know, when we observe it, the thing that we know about it is that we are the product, not the consumer. Mm-hmm. Like The Social Dilemma, that movie does a really good job of showing us. And then there is this research, and actually I think probably a lot of this research right now on the impact of social media, I think it's leading to some of these ideas about, okay, no social media before 16 and things like that. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Haidt's work, because it is so negatively impactful. He has a book called The Anxious Generation, and it shows that the data reflects that the incidence of anxiety and depression and suicidality, all of these doubled when social media really took hold. And particularly in the teenage population, and particularly in the female teenage population. And so he gives some good guidelines for screen time, what seems to be a critical point at which we need to stay below 2 hours for those under 18, 4 for those for adults is what his data indicates. So I think that it is immensely addictive. I think that we know that these algorithms, it is scary how good these are. I did a test on it through YouTube. One time I was like, I want to see how good these algorithms are.
Yeah.
So I signed out, was on a different computer, didn't know who I was, and I didn't use my account, anything like that. I went in, I typed in 3 or 4 of my favorite songs. When I looked at the suggested song list, it was scary how well it nailed me. And it wasn't the same genre. It wasn't like rock and roll, or folk or anything like that. I mean, they were hitting Motown stuff I love. I have no idea how these things work, but it's frightening.
Yeah.
And they have us nailed, and they will keep us on them as long as we let it.
Yeah. I think, and I could be wrong about this, but going through your book, the consumption, what we choose to consume chapter is the longest. It had, I think, a lot of more meat to it. One that jumped out to me, and I never even thought about it, news. You make a fascinating point about news consumption. Why does consuming large amounts of news often leave people feeling worse about the world?
Well, I'm glad that one stuck with you, because, and maybe one of the reasons why it stuck out to you is that we are taught to be an informed populace. We want to be informed of what's going on, have knowledge. That's being a good citizen of the world. And it is. The problems are that we have news available to us at all times is one thing. And the other thing is, of course, our news is often slanted.
Yes.
In one direction or the other. And so it's just going to absolutely pull us. And the thing is that if you think about it from an ancestral perspective, our ancestors knew what was going on in their village, maybe a surrounding village or two.
Right.
Our brains are not made
Yeah.
to be inundated.
Bombarded.
We're not made to know what's going on the other side of the world. And so what it does to us is when we're watching it, it really warps how likely we think things are. I've had clients who will have a certain fear. a fear of this happening, a fear of that happening. I mentioned one in the workbook. And what will happen is they'll watch the news and it's boom, boom,
Yes.
boom, that thing, these terrible violent crimes and things like that. Well, we're exposed to that, and it increases how likely we think they are to happen, because what do they not mention? The 5,000, 5 million people that went home that night, they had dinner, watched some TV, went to bed. That's not newsworthy.
Right.
We want to hit fear, we want to hit outrage,
Yeah.
and it really changes how likely we think.
Yeah, my wife Amanda was reading, she also looked through your book, and that jumped out to her, the news. And she actually made the comment. She's like, wow. She's like, that really struck a chord with her. She's like, I don't watch the news. Like, I don't watch the news because it's so bad. Like, and like, there's never anything good. And she just, basically when she wants to know what's going on in the world, I mean, yeah, we'll flip through social media or whatever. But she's like, my mom will just tell me what's going on. My mom tells me what I need to know. And to a point, she's right. It's so hard to parse fact from narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what when I'm looking for a good news source, I'm trying to find someone that presents fact with as little narrative as possible and lets you draw your own conclusions. So I think that's probably a healthy way to go at it. But it's just really tough to find.
So in other words, you like the news,
not
not opinions.
Yeah. I like fact.
Yeah, facts are
Not
nice.
opinion. I would love to talk about pornography, but my mom's going to listen to this podcast, so I think I'm going to pass on that one. The real purpose of your book, it isn't really about learning new ideas. It's about changing behavior. Not that I want to beat a dead horse, but why is changing behavior so difficult, do you think?
If I had to say one thing,
Mm-hmm.
is that we are most comfortable with our feelings leading us, because that's the easiest.
Mm-hmm.
It's the easiest to do what we feel like.
Lead with emotion.
Absolutely. And the reality is, when feelings lead, we're in trouble. The ideal healthy behavior is behavior leads, feelings follow. When behavior leads, positive feelings are much more likely to occur. When feelings lead, we're in trouble. Like I said, it's typically going to be pretty rough for us, because our feelings are going to lead us to avoid. They're going to lead us to the short term. If we're in a negative emotional state, it's going to lead us to perhaps isolate or become agitated. And so really, I think that's the most difficult part of change. I say to people that if I had to have one thing to predict when someone walks in my office, how likely are they to improve? The one piece of information I would want to know is, are they willing to do something even if they don't feel like it?
So there are people listening right now who probably recognize themselves in some of these patterns, maybe. If someone wanted to begin today, how do they start?
Well, I think it goes back. First of all, let's get aware.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, let's pay attention to these different things. Record it. Let's see where we are on these different things. I'm about to release an app that's all about this, which is record these things. Take a minute, maybe 2 minutes each day. It's going to ask you to record these different things along all these that we've talked about.
So you're launching an Our Primal 5 app.
I am. Okay. And it's going to give you scores, and it's going to let you know what are the targeted amounts for these different areas. It's going to talk about what are the trends that you have over weeks. It's going to give you behavior change tips. It's going to do all these things, but it really begins with that awareness, and then pick one. Pick one that would be good to work on. That's why the workbook is set up in a week-by-week manner. Do not try to fix it all at once. That's a recipe for failure. We're trying to identify, this is one that I'm going to work on this week. I'm not going to seek perfection. I'm going to seek improvement. That's a key aspect too.
And so the book, your website, Campbell Psychological Services, it's Campbell PS Psychological Services, campbellps.com. So you have information about the book there. Like I said, I ordered the book on Amazon, and it showed up in a couple days. If you were going to start with one of the Primal 5, which one do you think moves the needle the most, or creates more that stacking effect? Not that you want to tell someone to start
in
somewhere.
my experience, The one I've noticed that has the most impact earliest, the quickest, social.
Social connection.
Social connection is the one that I've seen people, again, experience that immediate benefit from. I think that we can get sleep, like to use your example, great sleep 2 nights ago. Last night, for a variety of reasons, not great sleep. If you stack good sleep, then you start to really experience the benefits, right? And so a lot of these are cumulative. They get better with time. Social is probably one where you get that benefit pretty immediately.
Yeah. So you have 4 sons.
I do.
When you think about the kind of life you want your 4 sons to build, which of these habits do you think matters most? Is it connection or?
You know, with my sons, I do think that there is a generational aspect to these things. And I think for my kids, for your kids, I think that the area that they are most vulnerable with is consumption, and in particular, media.
Yeah.
I notice with my sons, they are not only much better looking and smarter, but they also are so much more health conscious than I ever was.
Okay.
Certainly at that age. And so they exercise, they get outside, you know, they connect with people, they do these things. They're big on sleep. These Whoop watches they're big on sleep. But the one thing that they have is they were basically born with technology in their hand.
Yes.
I mean, it's constant. It is their normal, and they can't have a frame of reference for what it's like without this. I was talking to a young guy at one point, and I was talking to him, and he was talking about how social media, how negative it was, how all these negative impacts it had on him made him feel terrible seeing what other people were doing and he's not, and so on and so forth. And I said, okay, talk to me about why are we not trying to change this? Or, I mean, you recognize the negative effect. And what he said I thought was so insightful and so plain spoken and a little bit of a dig on me. He said, you're older. You were not raised on this.
Right.
He said, this is all I've known. And the interesting thing is, for what he said to me, he said, I'm still afraid of missing out. I still have FOMO, even though it has a negative impact on me. So I think that my main concern with that generation is that consumption, because it's so negatively impactful and it's all they know.
Is there anything that we didn't cover today that you would like to cover?
I don't know that there's any one thing in particular. I think that one of the things that we, try to do with the workbook is we talk about these things. We're trying to encourage a variety of things. We're also trying to provide some behavioral tips to give some guidance on that, because I think that the behavior tips that we give increase the likelihood that we can have this success. I think that there are a lot of things that can make it much, much more likely that we succeed. And I think if we use as an example, like we laugh about New Year's resolutions, right? Because the reality is 90% of them are gone in a few weeks, right? Why does that happen? Well, we're not set up for success with those. There are a number of things we do wrong. We try to address several of those in the book. But more than anything else, we want our feelings to lead us on that one. We're excited we're doing something different. This is great. I'm helping myself, so on and so forth. But you know what? A week later, we're awful tired to go to that gym. We'll go tomorrow, right? We're waiting on the feeling, like we want to feel like doing it. That's not going to do it.
Yeah. Well, Matt, 30 years ago, you're the president of the fraternity that I pledged at Clemson. Today, you're helping people rebuild their lives around 5 simple habits most of us already know, but rarely practice: sunlight, sleep, movement, connection, and being intentional about what we consume. And in a lot of ways, that connects perfectly with what we talk about here on Retire Southern. Retirement IQ helps people build financial capital, but life EQ helps us build the kind of life where that capital actually matters. Because what is good wealth if your body's exhausted, your relationships are strained, and your mind never slows down? Your work reminds us that alignment doesn't start with money. It starts with how we live. And sometimes the most powerful changes aren't complicated, they're primal. I think we should go explore downtown Oxford and
Let's
talk
go.
about ways that I could make some more mistakes tonight.
Let's do it.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.